Welcome to the Gary Sinise Foundation podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce an incredibly inspiring guest and my dear friend, Bryan Anderson.
Hey!
Welcome.
Thank you.
Bryan is a decorated Army veteran who served with distinction and honor in the Iraq War. He is a remarkable symbol of resilience and hope, who has an unyielding commitment to live life fully, no matter the obstacles. All right, Bryan. So Gary pinged me with his own question.
Interesting.
Yeah. So surprise. Are you ready?
What, is he going to ask me if I still smoke?
No.
That was a big thing for a long time, which I don't smoke anymore.
I know
so
you don't.
we're good.
All right. Here it is.
Hey, Bryan, look who's here. It's me. Thanks so much for being there and doing the podcast with Cristin. I have a question for you. How's the acting career going? What you been doing? Tell us a little bit more about some of those parts, and if you have anything in the pipeline. We all want to know about it. God bless you, bud.
Wow. It's an interesting question,
It is.
So, a while back, I don't even remember what year it was, I did an episode of CSI New York with Gary, where Gary's accusing me of murder. And it was fantastic, and it was literally acting across from my idol, my mentor,
Yeah.
basically. I wanted to be just like Gary. And so that was a really cool experience. I did Hawaii Five-0, Magnum P.I., American Sniper, The Wrestler, the movie called The Week Of
Love
on
it.
Netflix. I play an 87-year-old World War II veteran.
You did?
Yeah, but I was a stunt double.
Okay.
Yeah. It was great. Ever since COVID, though, kind of slowed everything down. And at that point in my life, I was in a different city every week for 15 years. And so I was kind of worn out.
Okay.
And I welcomed COVID.
Oh, okay.
in a sense.
Yeah.
Not the disease or
Right,
the
right.
sickness.
Just like the pause.
But the pause and the break in life. And that helped me reset. I was going to say put my feet on the ground. Get grounded. And I had left LA to move back to Chicago because I knew I was going to build a house in Tennessee. So I figured save up some money, be near family, and all that. But as I left LA, I got rid of my agent. I just was like, let me focus on this for now.
yeah.
Well, now that I'm here, I'm starting to think about acting again. And I'm going to start looking for an agent. I have not done so yet.
Okay. He's on the market.
But this writer and producer just called me up actually a couple days ago and asked me if I would be willing to do a movie.
Exciting.
And I told him, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to see you on the big screen.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll only go bigger, onward and upward from there.
I'm just trying to have fun. You know, it's not my job to where I have to live off of it.
Yeah.
It's more or less like a hobby.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy doing it, so I want to do more of it.
I love that.
As long as I can, you know.
Exactly. All right, Bryan. So take me back then, though, first to October 23rd, 2005.
October 23rd, 2005 is the day that I got blown up. What would you like to know about it?
Can you tell me about that day?
Yeah, it was hot.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's all I got.
It's all right. Next question. No.
We had been there. This is our second year in Iraq.
Okay.
And we had been there for about 10 months already. So we only had 2 months left
Okay.
of missions, maybe 2.5 months left in country. And I was actually, not that this matters, but it adds to the story a little bit. I only had 6 months left in the Army. So I was ready to get out.
So you were looking to the future.
I was looking to get out,
Yeah.
go start my life. Yeah. And then October 23rd rolled around, and it was around 11 o'clock in the morning. We had this mission where we were basically teaching the Iraqi police officers how to police their country.
Okay.
For the first 3 months, we were police academy instructors that second year. Then after the 3 months, we were going out to the different police stations, making sure that they were doing everything that they needed to do to police their own country.
Right.
You know, we'd hold their hands doing raids and patrols and whatever they needed. We also made sure that they had vehicles and weapons and food for prisoners and humane jail cells and
Wow.
all kinds of things like that. And so our mission became, after the police academy instructor stuff, go out. We had 6 Iraqi police stations within a 6-mile radius that we were in charge of. And so every day we would go outside the wire and visit all those police stations. And that's kind of what we were doing. And so October 23rd, around 11 o'clock in the morning, we loaded up one of our trucks, or my truck, and we headed out to our first Iraqi police station. And we didn't make it. We got blown up. But we were driving really slow.
Okay.
We were keeping a bubble between us and the traffic, like 250 yards in front and behind. And so when you do that, you can only go as fast as their traffic is going. So we were literally doing like 5 miles an hour,
Crawling.
if that, crawling, yeah. And this is different because the first year we just plowed through everybody.
Okay.
Like we'd hit cars, we'd just make our way, make our path. But then car bombs started coming out and the IEDs, and so then we switched it up to where keep the distance. Well, the insurgents figured that out. And what they did for my bomb is one of our tanks went over the median
Okay.
in the center of the road and crushed it. Well, the insurgents measured it, cleaned it out, swept it out, built a bomb to fit in that dimensions, plastered it and painted it so that it looked like one long curb.
No.
Yeah. And then it had a laser beam that shot across the road. So it was a cell phone to arm it. And so once all the civilian traffic passed, they pushed the button on the cell phone and it armed it, which sent the laser beam across the road. Because we all had the Warlock systems on our trucks, which are radio frequency jammers, so that you can't make a phone call, you can't do things like
So
detonate the bomb.
Yeah, it prevents that.
So that was
Okay.
their way to get around our Warlock systems. And it was set for like the 3rd break in the beam. Or 5th break in the beam. So I was the 3rd truck in the convoy. 2 breaks for the first truck, 2 breaks for the second truck. And then my 5th break, when my front tires broke that beam, it just blew out sideways into a wall of crap. And the next thing that I know was just there was like smoke, fire, and like a shower of sparks coming through my door. And then it was just pitch black. I wasn't knocked out or anything.
You're conscious.
I was conscious, yeah. I was awake through the whole thing. My first reaction was to look to my right where everybody is to me in the truck and be like, hey, we got hit. You guys okay? You guys okay? And I didn't hear anything, and that scared the crap out of me. Well, the reason I didn't hear anything is Kenny was sitting next to me, and Bradley's in the gun. He got shrapnel in his wrist and in his hip, but he also said, like, my hand hit him in the face and landed in his lap.
No.
And that told him to get out. So he jumped out of the truck before it even stopped moving. And then Bradley, this is funny because I always say this in my speeches. He got the Forrest Gump wound, shrapnel to the buttocks.
Did he?
Yeah. And he jumped straight out the top of the turret before the truck even stopped moving. So by the time I even asked, hey, we got hit. Are you guys okay? You guys okay? Nobody was inside
You're
the truck.
the only one.
I was the only one
Yeah.
in the truck. And when nobody answered me, it scared me, so I tried looking harder. And as I started looking harder, I started seeing green. And I was like, why am I seeing green? And I just kind of relaxed all my muscles, and my head fell backwards. And I went, whoa, why did my head fall backwards? Well, what had happened was when the explosion went off, it literally cut my legs and my hand off instantly. My legs were laying in the floorboard. My hand was in the passenger seat. And it actually spun me sideways to where I was laying like this. And when I looked to my right, I was actually looking at the
Into
back
the
of my seat,
yeah.
which was green. Which makes sense why I saw green.
But disorienting.
But then I realized that once my head fell backwards that I was on my back. I didn't know anything was really wrong with me yet. And I just told myself, okay, we got hit. Get out. And I don't know what I did to try to get out, but within like a few seconds, I just realized that I couldn't get out, and I didn't know why. I probably would have started freaking out, thinking everybody was dead, if it wasn't for the fact that, like, literally seconds after me realizing this stuff, I started hearing my friends bust the bolts off the door, so I knew help was coming. And then Kenny and Bradley, when they jumped out of the truck, they just ran to the truck in front of us, looked back and said, hey, Anderson's not out yet. Let's go get him. Let's go get him. And so then Kenny, Bradley, and then the driver of that truck, Michael Waite, came back, busted the bolts off the door. The door flies open. They grabbed me. They pulled me out. I got like a really good fresh breath of air, and it kind of brought me back. And so I just started like looking around, like what's happening? What's going on? Are we being attacked? Do I need to be doing something? Where's my gun? Things like that.
Looking out for everybody else.
Sort of, yeah, I guess. And all I could see was my friends running back and forth from me to the truck like they'd all just seen a ghost. And then at the same time, I knew I had to be pulled out of the vehicle. So now I'm on the sidewalk, and I'm like, all right. They're pulling me out. Like, all right, what's going on? What's happening? And I had blood on my face. And the first thing that I did was wipe my face. Or it was the flies. The flies were buzzing around my face and the blood and all that. And I just went to go wipe it away. And that's when I noticed that my index fingertip was missing. And I'm kind of like, okay. And I look up at them, and they're all freaking out. And I'm just like, okay, well, a fingertip's not going to cause them to act that way. So then I turned my hand over. And where that tattoo is on my hand, that whole chunk was missing. And I could see into my hand, like the shattered bones and then torn ligaments. And I was just kind of like, well, that's gross. And as I was looking at that, a fly landed in my left eye. And because I was looking at this hand, I went to go wipe it away with my left hand. And I just whiffed. And that's when I was like, oh. And my sleeve was hanging down and blood was dripping down. And I was just kind of like, oh, choice word. And I look up at my friends and I look back at that and I'm like, okay, that really sucks. I still don't think it would cause them to act the way that they were acting. And that's when I decided to like look down. And as I started to look down, they tried to like force my head back down to the ground, hoping I wouldn't see what had happened.
Yeah.
But I saw what happened. And I just, oh. And then in my head, I let out this whole string of swear words of like, no, that did not just happen. And then I looked down again and I'm just like, no, that didn't just happen. But then you really had this like feeling of just like, crap, that just happened. You knew it happened.
Yeah.
And then I just got this like really weird feeling of like, oh crap, my mom's gonna kill me. If this doesn't kill me, she's gonna kill me. Yeah. And then we were laying there. My friends were fumbling around with the medical equipment, the tourniquets and things like that. All still looking panicked. And I realized I hadn't actually said anything yet. And I needed to say something. And I don't know what came over me. And I never thought I was a typical guy till this moment. I don't even know why I thought of it, but I looked up, I grabbed my buddy's arm, and I was like, holy crap, dude, do you ever think I'm going to get laid again?
Josh.
And he just started laughing. And it like put him right back on
The
track.
profound thing you said.
feel ashamed now. Like,
No.
I'm just a typical guy.
No.
I thought I was better than that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And he came up to me when he was pinning the Purple Heart on me, and he goes, "Hey, do you remember what you said to me?" And I was like,
He pinned.
No. He said, "Yeah, you can have anybody pin the Purple Heart on you, even the president,
him,
right?"
yeah.
I didn't want that. I want the guy that saved my life. So, like, yeah. So he goes, "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" And I was like, "What do you think the first thing I said was?" And then he told me, and my eyes went down, like, yeah. Yeah. I don't even know why I went there. It just went there.
What was his reaction?
He just started laughing. Well, then he goes, "Thank you." And I was like, "What are you thanking me for?" And he's like, "Well, it just made me realize that you were still there,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just a lifeless body."
Mm-hmm.
And he just put me right back where my head needed to be. And I was
Yeah.
just like, okay.
It locked him right into
Well,
gear.
thank you. You saved my life, dude. I can't
Yeah.
thank
Meant
you
to
enough.
be. Yeah. Oh. I'm never going to stop laughing at your line. Okay, so can you tell me, what was early recovery like for you?
Early recovery sucked because I was the fourth triple amputee, and they didn't really know how to handle us. Like, they knew how to handle the double amputees and
Right.
things like that. Thankfully, there's this triple amputee that was still there, Joey Bozick.
Okay.
He's from Texas. Great dude. He was hit almost a year and 2 days before I was.
Okay.
So his is like October 25th, something like that.
Crazy.
So by the time I got there, he was already a year into that progress. And so I really latched onto him and learned from him a lot. And one of the greatest things he ever taught me was it's your mind that holds you back from everything. You need to accept that this is what happened to you and this is the way that you are now. And once you're able to accept that, truly accept that this is the way that I am, you'll be able to move forward. And so that was the hardest thing for me, but knowing that helped me get to that point a lot faster, I feel. I was raw, like everything hurt. It was just tender and raw. I'd bang my stump and it would be like, ooh, miserable, excruciating pain. Now I can bang it on concrete and like, whatever. You know, it's desensitized.
Right.
But early on, there's so much sensitivity with everything. It was hard. I was lucky, though. I used to be a gymnast. And so I didn't look at my wheelchair as like my only mode of transportation. Like, I have my hands, and prosthetic. I hop on the floor all the time and walk on my hands
I've seen
and
it.
handstands and jump on counters. So, like, I think that gymnastics background really helped with that. But early on, I was really able to get it in my head, okay, I'm a triple amputee. I survived. Well, now what? No idea what kind of quality of life I would have. No idea what kind of independence I would have. I had no idea. But I had enough strength to take it a day at a time and see where it went.
Yeah.
And my family was there. My mom, you know, that they had a lot to do with my recovery. But it was important to just get to that point of take it a day at a time and see where it goes, because you don't know where it could go. Yeah. After about 4 months, I hit a depression. I was in the shower just washing myself, and I looked down and I just got in my head like, oh my gosh, I'm half a person. Like, you are literally half a person. And then, like, that whole girl aspect thing comes in of, like, what girl ever says, my dream dude's a guy in a wheelchair missing 3 limbs? Like, no, nobody ever really says that. And then I came up with the idea of the shirt 75% off.
Oh my gosh.
Make myself marketable to women?
Gosh.
I don't know. But I was in this depression for like 2 weeks. And a lot of it had to do with just the sheer amount of soldiers going through Walter Reed. Not really my own stuff, a little bit, but more just seeing how many soldiers are getting hurt.
Yeah.
Having to go through this, seeing soldiers without family members there. And I was very lucky. I had my family there and support. And not everybody did. And so I started thinking about this. I'm sitting at this reflecting pond. And the last 4 months I'd been at Walter Reed. Well, the last year before that I was at war.
Mm-hmm.
So in 16 months, basically, I hadn't experienced any kind of real life.
Ah.
And so my mom looked at me and gave me this look, and she's like, what? And I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to experience real life again. Like, remember what we fought for. Remember what life is worth living for and things like that, you know? And she goes, okay, where do you want to go? And I'm like, how about Vegas?
Why not?
An hour later, I was on a plane to Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
Not even kidding. An hour later, I was on a plane to Vegas. My mom was so, like, dead set and like, that's what you need. That's what you're going to get. That's what we're going to do. And we just did it. And I spent 3 days down there with my mom and my best friend, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said Vegas because my best friend lived there, too.
Okay.
So it wasn't just the,
Sure.
the party thing. But I spent 3 days down there, and I had fun. And having fun forced me to, like, focus on what was in front of me and live in the moment instead of dwelling or thinking about what had happened or living in the past. And so now I get back to Walter Reed, and it's not easy for everybody. But this was an easy thing for me, to just come to this realization of flipping a switch, of like, all right, so you spent 3 days in Vegas, you had a blast, and that forced you to focus on what was in front of you and live in the moment instead of dwelling on that.
Right.
Would you rather to be depressed, or would you rather go out and have fun? I was like, I'm going to be this guy.
Yeah.
And I just chose, I'm going to go out and have fun. And I just started doing that. And like that kind of really took care of all that depression. It was just forced me to live in the moment. I also made a decision to like, this is about me. Like nobody's going to make me recover other than me. And so it was kind of selfish stance in that time because
Self-care. It's not selfish. Yeah. You're taking care of
like,
yourself.
I can't help anybody else
No.
if I'm not good. And so if I get back to good, then I can help other people. So I put my head down. I didn't care about what other people thought, if they were staring or doing whatever. Everybody around me would always be like, oh, people are staring. Like, I don't even see it. Like, I'm just doesn't matter. Screw them. They don't matter right now.
Yeah.
We're doing our thing. We're going to have fun. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing that. And things just kind of started snowballing from there. And then I jumped on a skateboard and then a snowboard and then
Never stopped.
no.
Never stopped.
Never
You
stopped.
mentioned your mom. How did, and like all moms, they're always in our corner. How did your mom's support inspire you? Is there anything she did or said that really like stuck out to you in your recovery?
Yeah. Two major things.
Okay.
One, she dropped everything she was doing and spent literally the whole 13 months at Walter Reed with me. Put her job on hold. She was working at a bank. They let her do it too. Like, it was great. Like,
That's awesome.
Our community supported us too, just as much as, you know, our family did too. Well, yeah, I get what I'm saying. But, so that was one. She was just there. And two, she looked at me when I was in the hospital, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. She goes, well, you've survived. We're here now. You know, you basically have like two options, right? And I'm like, okay. She's like, you can roll over and die, or you can choose to pick yourself up and move on. I was like, and I just kind of like nodded at her. And she goes, and you're going to do? I'm like, really? You even have to ask that? I'm going to, yeah, of course I'm going to.
She wanted you to say
good.
it. Yeah.
She wanted me to say it. Because she wasn't sure that being a triple amputee that I would even want to live life anymore. Like, that was a concern of hers. Like, does he even want to live anymore? Which, of course, I do. Like, life is amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it at the time, but, like, this is one of the better things that has happened to me. Like, it's given me a platform. It's given me strength to know about myself, learn about myself, figure out about who I am. And it's also given me the strength to help others get back to good places or whatever. It doesn't have to be amputees or people that are sick. It's just any given person goes through daily struggles or things, and I've been able to help a lot of people get through some of that.
Yeah, it's a positive outlook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is amazing.
Yeah. She was definitely your strength in the corner.
Absolutely.
And recovery is always challenging. And you touched a little bit on what kept you motivated, but what kept you motivated? And for our listeners who are on their recovery journey, what would you tell them?
I mean, your mind is your most powerful weapon.
Okay. Yeah.
But it also could be your most powerful enemy.
True.
So what you choose to think is what it's going to be. So if you think this is going to be a bad thing, guess what? It's going to be a bad thing.
It's going to be.
If it's going to be a positive thing, or you think that way, it's going to be a positive thing. That's kind of what I would say. But like, what kept me motivated was I was still young. I was 24 years old, 25 years old, not ready to not do stupid things with my friends. I'm not even kidding. I wanted to go do stupid things with my friends.
You wanted to live.
And that was a big motivation. Like, wheelchair? What? Okay, whatever. We just figure it out. And like, perfect example of doing something stupid with my friends. We did this event. I don't even remember who it was for. It was at the Boss Bar in Chicago. And they had like celebrity bartending or whatever. And I was one of the celebrities bartending. And for that, I had my legs on, which I don't wear legs anymore. But at that time, I was wearing prosthetic legs and I was bartending. And that was like a thing for like 2-3 hours. It started at like 4. And so by 6-7 o'clock, that event was kind of done, and we all just kind of went bar hopping afterwards.
Of course.
And I was in this manual chair. I took the legs off and all that. And we get to this old bar in Chicago where there's this flight of stairs up. Like, Chicago's old.
Yeah.
And so not every place is accessible. And because they're like grandfathered in, they don't have to have a lift or a ramp or anything like that. And so it was just like, how do we make this not so awkward? And like everybody like, all right, we got a guy with a wheelchair coming in. Watch out, make way, make way. It was more or less like Chinese fire drill. Dude, one of my friends jump in front of me. I jumped on his back. Another dude grabbed the chair, picked it up. We like NASCAR'd it like right up the stairs.
Faster than normal.
Boom, boom, done. Nobody even knew what happened.
Oh my.
It's like, see?
Done.
Blink an eye, you're done. And so like, a lot of my motivation was to be disabled, but to be more able than most able-bodied people. And I do a lot.
Yeah, you saw it as like a challenge.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right.
And so like, people think like when they get in the car with me, it's going to be this whole process. Like, no, I'm ready to go before they even put their seatbelt on. But so, I don't know, for some reason for me, acting quickly too was important because I didn't want the disability to slow me down.
Right. Everything, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And so it wasn't long also in your recovery that you met Gary. So
True.
I have to ask, how was it meeting him?
It was awesome meeting him, and I didn't expect to meet him.
Okay.
So at Walter Reed, they would call them peer visitors. Like, Gary's a peer, right? He's a celebrity. Like my peer. But that's what they would call it, peer visitors. And I was practicing walking on prosthetic legs in the PT room. And I was just making a circle like this. And I get onto the back side of the room, and 15, 20 people walked in. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go. Another peer visitor. Some politician wants to get a photo with a wounded soldier. Whoop-de-doo, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of...
Not buying it.
That's kind of like the thought process we have, some of us anyway. And so I didn't give a crap. I didn't even know who it was, to be honest. But so I'm walking on the back of the room, and now I get to the front part of the room again where all these people are. And I'm just like, excuse me, I'm trying to walk through here, and whatever. And my prosthetic toe hit somebody else's toe, so it didn't kick forward for me.
Oh.
And so there was no leg there, and I started to go down right into Gary's chest. And Gary just stood strong and held me up. And I kind of pushed off of him. And I look up and I'm like, whoa, Gary Sinise. And he looked at me and he goes, holy crap, the real Lieutenant Dan. And I'm just like, no. I will never be Lieutenant Dan. You will always be Lieutenant Dan. But oh my gosh, amazing. How are you? And he's like, I'm good. And then he literally took me to this table and we sat down right there. Right after that happened. And we sat there and talked for 10 minutes. And he was just genuine. He just kind of sat down and talked to me. Okay, so how you doing? You got blown up? Yeah, okay. What's therapy like? I don't know. He just seemed genuine in asking the right questions instead of putting out oh, hey, it's like, you'll be all right, though. He didn't do any of that. It was just actual concern for my well-being, which was, it came through clear as day.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool. And then he left. And that was it. And as I left Walter Reed, I was lucky and I ended up coming out on the cover of Esquire magazine. And that opened a lot of doors for me. And so being in Chicago, I started getting invited to a lot of these veteran events and things like that. And Gary was still in Chicago at the time, too. He would get invited to a lot of the events. And so we just kept running into each other. Hey, there you are again. Hey, good to see you. And then, I don't know, after a while of just running into each other, Gary said something about hey, why don't you come travel around with the band once or twice or something. And then all of a sudden, it just became a thing.
You were part of the band.
I was a part of the band.
Essentially.
And I would just go everywhere with the band. We'd do the Lieutenant Dan Band weekends in Savannah, Georgia, Beaufort, South Carolina, where they filmed Forrest Gump, Camp Lejeune.
What do you have?
However you say it. Yeah, and had some incredible experiences together.
Yeah.
And then at one point we were in Hawaii right after he started the foundation. So I was doing this before the foundation was even a foundation.
Yep, your friendship goes way back.
We were in Hawaii and he goes, I think I want you to have dinner with me before the show. And I'm just like, what? I think I did something wrong. I'm thinking I'm going to get yelled at. Or you've been on a lot of these events with us, and then we think it's great, but you're just going to have to...
Not a chance.
Take a step back, or something like that. I don't know. And then before the show, we literally go into the back green room or whatever, and it's me and him just having dinner. Nobody else in the room. And that's when he asks me to be an ambassador for the foundation.
Right.
And I'm just like, I'm not in trouble.
That's your first thought.
Fantastic. Yes, absolutely. What does that entail? What do you want me to do?
I love that you said yes, and then you go, but what is that? What do you want me to do?
Right. It was absolutely just like that.
Yeah.
When then Gary does... I didn't really get Gary's humor yet because I didn't spend much time with him. And then Gary just dead eyes me and just just be there when I can't be there, talk really highly of me, everybody love me, things like that. And I'm just looking at him like, is he being serious right now?
Really? Okay, I'll do that.
And I'm just like, yeah. And then he just starts laughing his ass off, and I'm just like, I really didn't think you were that kind of person. And he's just laughing. And he's just like, yeah, no, just be an ambassador, be a force to be reckoned with, spread the word, help me when I can't be there. Yeah. And so it's been amazing. I don't know.
Just be
He really got me on that one. I'm just like, what the?
You're like, okay, I can do that. Okay, Bryan, so everyone who joins the military has their why story. I know that I do. And so why did you join the military, and what drew you to the Army?
Well, it wasn't always the Army. It
Okay.
wasn't. That part wasn't really a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really matter what branch it was.
Okay.
The Army and the Marines, the commercials, like the obstacle courses, things like that, me being a gymnast, like I'd see these commercials and I'd always just be like, I could do that. I know I could do that. I want to do that. And then it kind of became like, well, I want to see if I really want to see if I can do that. The only way I'm going to know is if I try, right?
You do it.
And I was working at American Airlines at the time out of O'Hare, Chicago. And that was a great career. I could have stayed with that and had a career and lived my life and been fine. But that path didn't lead me anywhere away from Chicago. It kind of just looked to me like a routine, boring life, which there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people just want that. And that's fine, and that's great. But I wanted to see things. I wanted to go travel. I wanted to help the little guy. I was always a little guy. Tiny. I was like 120 pounds when I joined the military. And the most I ever got up to was like 130.
Wow.
So I was a little dude.
Yeah.
And everybody like picked on me and whatever. Like I wasn't unpopular, but because I was little, you know, like the way friends pick on you type things. Like you tiny, pushed around and things like that. But I was a tough dude. And I thought, okay, well, if I can join the military, I can help the little guy, I can take it. Plus, it'll get me out there to see the world, see places I haven't seen, and put me in situations that I wouldn't necessarily otherwise be put in.
Yeah.
So that was really the real reason to join. That and, you know, to serve your country, like that's doing something bigger than yourself.
Right.
And I always wanted to do that. Like, I'm not a selfish kind of person. I want to give back. I want to help the community. I want to do things. So I kind of did that. At the time, I had a girlfriend. Her name was Lisa. And we were tossing around the idea of joining the military. And so we went to the different branches and interviewed with all of them. And the first one was the Navy. We thought the Navy would be kind of cool. Be in a boat, whatever. Then they told us that you might not see land for 6 months. You hot bunk things, meaning like you have to share your bed with somebody. Like, so when one shift is sleeping, you're out working. And then when your shift is over, they get up and you get into that bed, which is still warm from the dude that was just sleeping there. And so we didn't.
That's a no-go.
I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Then we went to the Air Force. And the Air Force said, we can guarantee you a job field, but we won't guarantee a job in that field. Like, so if I specifically wanted to go as like an aircraft mechanic, I could go for that. And they say, okay, yeah, we'll get you in the field of aircraft mechanic, but I could still end up becoming a janitor in that field. Or like whatever they needed me.
Right.
So you couldn't like, I was like, no, didn't want to do that. Then we went to the Marines and they just seemed way too gung-ho for me. Like, nope.
All right.
Well, for example, in the movie Forrest Gump, when Lieutenant Dan Taylor looks at Tom Hanks, or Forrest Gump, says, go clear that hole, gives him a pistol. He just dives headfirst in that hole without questioning him, blah, 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 blah. Which is where, like, the Army would be like, can I just throw a grenade down there first? Which, in the movie, they did throw a grenade in there first, but it was like, that's kind of like, I'd like to be able to, can we do it this way? It might be better. Instead of just blindly following the order.
I see how it is.
And so then we went to the Army, and it just seemed like that was the best fit.
Yeah.
And signed up right there, had good enough scores to become military police officers. So that's what I chose to do. It was like me and my twin brother, we would play Bang Bang Shoot 'em Up with like FBI taped on the back of our windbreaker jackets as we were kids growing up. So I was like, well, something
It
law
inspired
enforcement.
you.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. And so you did 2 tours in Iraq.
In Iraq. Yeah.
It's Iraq. Iraq?
I mean, some people call it Iraq. Some people call it Iraq.
Iraq.
Whatever.
Iraq.
Iraq.
Whatever.
Iraq.
You did 2 tours. You did two tours there.
Yeah.
And so if you knew then what you know now, would you still have joined?
Yes, I would.
You would? Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, 2 things. One, it gave me a life that I never could have imagined otherwise. Yeah, some bad things happened, but my life today, because of all of that, is so incredible. I'm so blessed. And I don't think I would have had these opportunities or been able to do the things that I've done if I was just a regular other person again. So like, yeah. And then like going to Iraq and having that war experience has like really made me grateful for where we've come from, what we have, what we've built for ourselves. And I never want to lose that. And life's a journey.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been an amazing journey. So yeah, of course I would do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that you have this kind of special aversion to the word tragic or tragedy.
Okay.
Can you?
What do you mean special?
Like when
aversion?
it's in-
Well, it's not a tragedy.
When it's exactly. Can you explain that?
This all goes back to how you choose to perceive things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think this is a tragedy, it's going to be a tragedy.
Okay.
If you think it's going to be positive, it's going to be a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I don't know. I got it in my head. I'm just living life.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to put that past. Accepting it.
Right.
Just putting it past you and then moving
Right.
on. Living your
Right.
life.
Yeah.
That's other people's word for looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a tragedy. Well, that's your opinion.
Mm.
I don't know.
It's not yours.
Not mine.
Yeah. You wrote about that in your book, No Turning Back. And there was just this common theme that I noticed, and it was exactly that it's you are not a tragic story.
Bad things happen.
Yeah.
Adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
Move on.
Well, and also in your book, Gary wrote the foreword.
Gary did write the
Gary
foreword.
wrote the foreword. Yeah.
I was so scared to ask him.
Were you?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, Gary accepted me as a friend before I accepted him as a friend. Like, he kind of accepted me as a friend immediately.
Yeah.
Which I'm still this kid looking at this celebrity, getting like windows into his life
Mm-hmm.
and being with him at the band and stuff like that. So like, I just thought he thought of me as some just random duty mat or whatever. Like, I didn't, so like asking him for things is something I never wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's something that's going to be put out there for the whole world to see. You know, some people might not like that.
Right.
And how much did Gary really know about me at the time to like endorse me and my story?
Mm-hmm.
And so to ask him to endorse me like that was kind of a big thing.
It was, yeah. I like though how he shared in his foreword about one of his many trips to Walter Reed, and he met the first quadruple amputee. So Brendan Morocco, who was injured in Iraq, and so he lost both of his legs and both of his arms. And he says that as he's leaving the hospital, he calls you.
He did.
Yeah.
And he never look down at your phone and you see Gary Sinise calling me. You never thought that would ever happen, ever. You're just like, whoa.
Takes a moment.
Okay. Hey, Gary, what's going on? How you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Surprised you called. Yeah. You know, I was thinking about you. I'm at Walter Reed and I just left somebody's room. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, Brandon Morocco. He's the first quadruple amputee. And he's like, man, it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really struggling a little bit, blah, blah, blah. And then Gary goes, well, I think he might do good talking to you or seeing you or whatever. It's like, enough said. And I literally jumped in the car and drove to DC right there and went and visited Brandon Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm hoping that helped Brendan.
Yeah, why was that
I
important
think it was.
for you to be there, to show up? Because Gary does say, he
'Cause
even
it was
says
really
that
the first-
got there immediately.
It was really the first chance I got to help somebody else. Like Joey Bozick did for me.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things in your book that you share is when your unit that you were deployed with was returning home, and you were determined to be there to welcome them home.
I was determined to be there, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just to be there, though.
Mm-hmm.
I was determined to be there, standing there.
Exactly.
And this was only 2 months after I got blown up. It was important for me
Mm-hmm.
to have my friends see me okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that would help them a lot, too.
Mm.
Yeah. The way prosthetics works too is they start you off, especially bilateral above the knee,
Mm-hmm.
on shorties.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like this tall off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then they give you up to 10 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Then they give you up to like short with knees,
Mm-hmm.
and then full size.
Right.
That's supposed to be a 6 month to a year process of growing. They put me in shorties. I was walking around like a little,
Like a penguin.
yeah, like a penguin. Like nothing can stop me. My therapist looked at me and she's like, all right, just stand there for a second. I'm going to push you.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay standing. Okay. And she just starts pushing me around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, you trying to knock me over? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, she's like, but your balance is really good. Blah, blah, blah. And so like, the next day I went up to 10 inches. And I was like, this is good. The next day, full-size legs. And I started using the sea legs. And so by the time they got home, I got to be in full-size legs,
Mhm.
in uniform,
Mm-hmm.
saluting them as they walked through the door.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible.
Yeah, what was that like?
Emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It was energizing.
Mhm.
It was healing.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
Yeah. You got to be
That's all
there
I
for
can really say, yeah.
your brothers there.
They all got released. We all went out to dinner. We drinking a little bit. But yeah, we had a good time. But it was really important for me. I don't know why in my head, but I needed to make sure they saw me okay.
Why?
I don't know.
It was going to be healing for
Something
them.
that's just a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing that I know about you, it's that you value your independence. So much so that for years, Gary was trying to convince you, you knew this was coming, to convince you to accept a specially adapted smart technology home built by the Gary Sinise Foundation. And you declined for over a decade. Why was that?
I declined because I was doing well.
Yeah.
You know, like I was acting, I was doing stunts, I was writing a book, I spokesperson of a few different companies.
Mhm.
Like I was doing well. And I didn't want to take away from somebody else that really needed it. I didn't want to come off as greedy. Like, I don't want to be greedy. And I wanted to build something for myself that maybe you guys wouldn't do for me. But the real reason is, like, there were people that needed it way more than I did. And so give it to them first. Give it to them. Give it to them. Give it to them. No. Gary's persistent. Like, he would literally ask me 2 or 3 times a year. So you can build your house yet? No.
Yeah.
All right, how about now? No. And then it was like, we were still living in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, we were at an event, maybe it was the Christmas party or something, and Gary goes, "Hey, so I'm going to build you a house, right?" And I looked at him and I was like, "No," and walked away. But that night, I went home and I was laying in bed and I just was thinking about it, like, and now I had seen some of these houses that he's built too, been to some of the dedications, like Juan Dominguez and all that, and like, it's just really nice homes and stuff. And in all reality, like in life, that's like the main thing you strive for in life is to get a permanent home. And that's really hard to pass up. So I called Gary back the next day or the day after that and was like, "I'm not saying yes, but let's discuss this. Let's talk about it."
He planted the seeds.
And he's like, "Great. Just pull this out, dude. Blah, blah, blah. We'll get you." And I was like, "Well, Gary, look, you know, I've been working my butt off for the last 10, 15 years as well because I want certain things for myself." And he's like, "Just ask for whatever and we'll figure out what we can do." And the main thing was land. Like, I wanted space. And I'm pretty sure I'm the last person that got land.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
No, we're thoughtful about that. I mean, I like how you say it, but you're right that Gary's determination is unmatched.
Oh, yeah. He's persistent.
He is. And I know every time he'd see you, he's like, "I'm going to talk to that."
Yeah.
And just.
It was always, "Are you still smoking? When am I going to build you a house?"
And look, both, both happened. So finally, you accepted the keys and iPad to your custom designed home. And so can you tell me what was that like?
It's surreal and all unbelievable because you're rolling in and you're just kind of like, "You guys are just giving this to me? You just, here you go." Okay. It's weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird, and I don't know, it meant a lot, and it's making life so much easier and simple. Like doing the dishes and cooking and taking a shower and just not running into my walls. Like in my condo, like, you should see my condo. Every single wall and door jamb is trashed because I hit them all. It's not
interesting.
Accessible.
Right.
I mean, it's accessible, it's doable, but not to the extent of like what this is. And now I don't have to worry about banging into things because I have the space to maneuver properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything about it that stood out to you that maybe that was like a surprise of how like how much it helped you?
I mean, honestly, the pull-out thing under the oven, so you can just take things out, set it down right there. I use that every day. Like, that is so helpful. You don't even realize it. Even the roommates that I have that are able-bodied, they use it.
Yeah.
It's just so convenient. It's like, why doesn't every house have this? Like, this is pretty amazing. But then, you know, the indents for the kitchen sink and the bathroom sink and things like that, like, make it so you could get all the way up to the sink before you're sitting reaching out trying to do things.
Right.
Now I can just do it like it's normal. And it's amazing. That, and, you know, the gaming setup that they gave for me was incredible.
I do.
And
that was a big surprise.
That was a huge surprise. And I use that all the time. All the time. Like, probably too much. But it's amazing.
It's made life easier. Yeah. Well, you are so deserving of it. And as Gary always says, that the house is a symbol from the American people that they do not forget your sacrifices ever.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to everybody that had a hand involved.
Yep.
Especially you, Gary.
Especially you. Well, as you know, this podcast is in honor of Mac, Gary's son, who we lost earlier this year in 2024. And
I miss Mac.
Yeah. Me too. And as you know, Mac, one of the things that we always loved about him was that he was just such a big thinker. He always asked the deepest questions about everything. And in Gary's episode, he shared about Mac's resilience, especially in his arduous battle with cancer. And so I ask you, a fellow resilient warrior, what helped you on your harder days? Like when things got really tough and you had to just dig in, what helped you?
That's a hard question, but I would have to say faith or belief. The belief that things are going to get better or be better. Because, like I said, life is hard. It goes up and it goes down, but it doesn't always stay up and it doesn't always stay down. So you just have to get through the next day or get through this day to get to the next day.
Right.
And so, like, things like that is the things I would tell myself. All right, well, tomorrow's a new day. Yeah, kind of just that.
Always stay positive and optimistic.
I mean, that and the fact that I have so many friends and family with support. So that always helps. But like being in this realm, working with Gary Sinise Foundation, USA Cares, being around guys like me that are all doing the same thing, like motivational speaking. And so to know that we're out there pushing a positive message, all of that helps with, all right, today's just a bad day. Move on to the next day. Like, it just all helps. And like, it's only so profound the first year. After that, like my hard days are just the same as your hard days.
It's interesting you see it that way. Yeah. You're always thinking of others. You're always thinking about how you can help others.
I try.
Yeah.
I look at it as having purpose. If you have purpose, it really makes it easy to help do things and do what needs to be done. If you have no purpose, it's just going to become lazy or I don't know. Like, and so that's another reason why I do the things is to have purpose. Because like if I just quit all my jobs and then just sit at the house that you guys just gave me, like I think I would just whittle away. That's not good.
No. Yeah. You got to think your just service is in your heart and continues to be. Yeah. Well said. Well, thank you, Bryan, for coming on the Gary Sinise Foundation podcast. I have no doubt your words were like a monthly dose of motivation to our listeners and just to stay strong and just to never give up. So thank you for that. And as we do with every episode, Mac will close out the show.
You've been listening to GSF Podcast, the official podcast of the Gary Sinise Foundation. If you'd like to find out more about what the foundation is up to, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit GarySiniseFoundation.org. Make sure to tune in next time for more interviews, and thanks for joining us.